Hello, everybody. So excited to be back for another episode of Maps and Graps. And no, you can't see any faces today because, I just don't really feel like being on camera, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. It takes a lot.
Same.
My skin has not been cooperating lately. Hopefully, we'll be back in business by Dynamite after show this week. So, whatever. But I'm super excited to talk. You might not get to see my lovely face today, but you do get to hear me gab. And I am joined here today with somebody to gab with me about something that I haven't gotten a chance to talk about for a very long time, but something that this person talks about all the time, which is British wrestling. We have Natasha here, aka Wrestling Rhapsody. How are you
Hi,
today?
I'm good, Lyric. How are you?
I'm awesome, It's always great when you're able to talk about some good international graps. So I'm excited. We're talking about none other than the Revolution Pro Rumble that happened recently this weekend. What an amazing show that was. If you've been following my journey, I got into British wrestling last year, kind of by accident. I was on spring break. I was looking for a show to go to. RevPro was running live in London, and I actually met Natasha because I needed somebody to take a picture of me. And
Take the picture by the room.
I'm not ashamed to say I was looking for another Black person in the room. And
Oh, no, don't worry. I answered that when you asked me. I was like, she asked me because I'm the only other Black girl in the room.
100%. And I posted it on Twitter, and then after she was like, "Hey, I took that picture of you," and we've been like, obviously very friendly ever since.
Yeah.
So RevPro has such a very special place in my heart for numerous reasons. I got to go back during All In weekend. Met a lot of my faves, and hung out with some really great friends that I've met in the UK. So I love RevPro. I don't get to watch the smaller shows as much as I would like to, like the Live in Londons or the Live in Southamptons, but I do tend to catch all of the major shows, and what a major show this was. I'm super, super pleased with how this card turned out. And so without any further ado, talk a little bit about the build for this show. We talked about it, offline, but when they were building this card, obviously, I feel like RevPro is in a very interesting position of, you've lost Will Ospreay. He's off to AEW. The face of the British wrestling scene is still kind of finding its own identity right now outside of him. And so I felt like this being the first major show after, the big Ospreay Oku match, they really needed to make a statement that, the future of British wrestling is in good hands. So I know that you follow it a lot closer than I do. Talk about, the build of this card. I know you've been going to a lot of the shows.
Yeah, so I go to basically every single London show, and I tend to watch their shows in other cities on the live stream if I have time. So sometimes I may not watch every single show, but I'm there for the main ones. And after High Stakes, there was a lot of conversation of how RevPro were going to go ahead with their big shows now that Will Ospreay is not going to be on the card anymore. And this was their first show back at York Hall, which is a place they love to do shows at, which they hadn't been at for quite a while. But their first show without Will Ospreay. And tickets went on sale, and I'm telling you, they were flying off the shelves. And that is testament to the card or the roster that RevPro have. I feel like maybe some people may underestimate RevPro, thinking that they may over rely on Ospreay or Zack Sabre Jr. coming in and having a random match with a star that is up and coming. But the build to this was basically surrounding around all the enemies, every single person who wanted a shot at Michael Oku's championship. And quite frankly, every man who isn't a cruiserweight champion or is in the cruiserweight division or in the tag division wanted to have a shot at Michael Oku. You had people like Luke Jacobs, people like JJ Gale, people like RKJ, Gabe Kidd. They all wanted to have a turn at facing Oku and taking his championship. So it kind of made sense that that was the story going into the Rumble, because with the Rumble, you have so many people who have their eyes on wanting to win and then getting that championship opportunity. So that was the build up to the Rumble itself. The match between Oku and Buzzard, because that was the championship match that happened. So those two had a bit of a feud around the summer of last year, But then Buzzard went to Japan for a little bit. He went to BJW, and then he came back beginning of this year, faced a guy called Cameron Kai, I think he's 18 years old, 19 years old. And they had actually faced each other before during the Oku feud in the summer. And then Buzzard then faced Suzuki. So you can see that Buzzard was kind of like making his way up through the card. And then they engaged in a match, in the tag team match, and Buzzard eliminated Oku. They have this really interesting tag team match where you get thrown over the top rope or you get pinned and you're eliminated. So it's almost like a mini rumble. Buzzard eliminated Oku, then Oku went in and eliminated Buzzard, and that's how their feud began for this match at Your Call. In terms of the women's match, so I think you watched High Stakes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so remember when Danny faced Sapphire Reed and then Alex Windsor came out with the chain?
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of their new feud leading up to Your Call. And I can't remember who Danny faced at the London show, or who Alex faced. Alex faced somebody and she was beating the girl up with this chain. And then Danny came out to save the girl. And then they announced that they're going to have a match, and it was going to be a dog collar match, which surprised a lot of people in the audience because, quite frankly, it makes sense to have a stipulation when these two have such bad blood.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think of the other matches that had a build to it. Connor Mills and Luke Jacobs.
Yep.
So that one, where do I even start with Connor Mills? Because obviously him and Oku, they used to be a tag team. They split up and Mills turned heel and he's been a bad guy ever since. And then you have Luke Jacobs, who's been building up a lot of momentum, especially with his matches with Tomohiro Ishii at the Copper Box and then the second match at High Stakes. But Connor Mills wanted Luke Jacobs' spot in the Rumble specifically. So if he beat Luke Jacobs, he would take Luke's space in the Rumble. So that's how their match came about at Your Call. So that was the build for a majority of the matches on the card.
Yeah, and I feel like some of these stories, like I look at Windsor versus Luna, that's been building for such a long time.
Yeah.
I think that if you look at last year, it felt like, Alex Windsor was clearly moving in to be like almost like the female face of RevPro, and Danny and Luna just had this excellent year that just took her around the world. Obviously, she ends up signing with TNA alongside Subculture, and she's one of those people who I feel has really grown on me. Like, I think a lot of people underestimate her, and when it's time to negotiate her next contract, I fully expect her to have her pick of wherever she wants to go. And I think that Alex Windsor has finally found her groove post injury. And
I agree.
And she thrives as a heel. So like, I was super excited seeing this card. Like you said, talking about like the Copper Box show, Luke Jacobs versus Tomohiro Ishii, to be quite honest, was probably the best match that weekend.
I remember all sitting together. It was me, you, and Ben, Graps on Taps, and we were just like freaking out.
I lost it. Like I lost it. I stood up, and it's so crazy because like, don't get me wrong, All In was great for the vibes, but from a wrestling perspective,
the RevPro
nothing was touching that RevPro show. And I think that's one of the cool things about RevPro. And I think that's, you talked about the ticket sales and everything. RevPro has really endeared itself, I think, not just on, fans of British wrestling who are like actually, from, the UK. People around the world know about this product, and like everybody I know who considers themselves a wrestling fan, if they're ever in London for any reason, if they're ever visiting the UK, they're like, okay, I have to see a RevPro show while I'm down here because although there's no quote unquote major promotion in the UK, RevPro has really filled in that role to the point where it feels unfair to call them just an indie, because it's really unfair to all the other indies. And one of the best show I've ever been to, like that RevPro show is truly one of the best shows I've ever been to live. And I've been to some insane shows live. But
it's like the build up to the show as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. This is my first time talking with somebody. I'm so used to like ranting by myself in my
I
room.
know, right? It's so weird when you get to like actually your internal monologue, you get to like vocalize it to other people.
Right. And now I have to like wait for someone to stop. I'm like, don't interrupt him, don't do it. Just like, hold on. But I remember like the RevPro match. I remember saying to myself, I'm more excited for the RevPro Copper Box show than I am for All In.
We all said that night.
Yeah. And then I left the Copper Box going, do you know what? That was the best show of the entire weekend. I don't know how All In's going to top this, because I don't know. Maybe I thought, because I'm so loyal to RevPro and I've been going to every London show and I'm attached to the roster and I understand each story, maybe that's why I was excited. But no, just from a wrestling standpoint, that show was the best show of the entire All In weekend.
100%.
And it's just they're doing the pre-sale for the next one. They already started selling tickets.
Absolutely. And I think also it's one of those things to where it's one of those years, even with All In, even with RevPro, everybody's doing this thing for the first time. So it was, you know, RevPro's first time running the Copper Box, AEW's first time running Wembley. And I'm going to be honest, like, I think we all know that the All In card was nowhere near a great summation of the AEW roster and its capabilities. And I feel like because RevPro is an indie, they couldn't really play as many games with the card. So like they knew they had to come correct, especially when you're running a building that large, and they absolutely did. So although I do think this year All In card will be 100% better, I also expect RevPro to still bring that same type of heat and fire, because they just always do. They literally always do. And
they really do.
I'm excited. I hope that the Copper Box gets packed out this year. I still haven't booked my flight to London, and like,
if you hurry up. You need to.
I do need to. I've decided that I'm going to be there no matter what. And you know, whenever I get into those modes, you can't ask me how I got there. Just know that I got there. That's really. I remember last year when I was telling people, I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to London. I'm going to Japan." I'm talking about no flights, no anything booked, just vibes, just talking.
Just the idea.
That's the thing. You really just have to keep speaking things into existence and just hoping and praying to God that they happen, because that's what happens to me. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the cards. So you talked about the build to Luke Jacobs and Connor Mills. Connor Mills specifically wanting Luke Jacobs' spot, and so we kicked off this card with Luke Jacobs versus Connor Mills, which is crazy, by the way. I think that's a crazy match to have as an opener. But you know what?
That's the thing. When I heard the theme music, I was like, oh, they're starting with this? Okay. I'm with it. But yeah, I mean, Connor Mills is somebody who I've watched for the past year and a half, who has gotten better and better each time he's in the ring. And I feel like because you have Michael Oku and you have Ricky Knight Jr., you have these names that are probably taking up a little bit more space and a little bit more space in people's minds. And he may be like the most underrated right now.
Yes.
But I think his match with Zack Sabre Jr. at High Stakes made people go, oh, okay, let me keep my good eye on this guy because he's actually very, very talented. And his whole like persona of true grit is something that I believe is a very fully realized concept. Before it was something that he just kind of turned heel and now he was a bad guy. But as I've said in many episodes, his in-ring style has developed in a more aggressive manner. His PK kicks, his strikes, his chops, 100%. He's become more and more and more vicious. And you pair that up with Luke Jacobs, who is, I think Ben called him a British Tomohiro Ishii, like someone who can just chop the hell out of somebody. The two of them were obviously going to go at it, and it was absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. And I think also when it comes to Connor Mills, you said, like, you know, there's some people who get a little bit more shine than him, and it's not a knock on his talent. It's just like, you know, that's just how things are. Like, you know, wrestling is a very star-driven business, you know, like as people are moving in, people are moving out, different things. And I think the same thing with Luke Jacobs, where I felt like a lot of people weren't paying attention to him until after that Ishii match.
Yes,
you know?
I agree 100%. Yeah.
And I think that's what's so important specifically about having the balance of a promotion that has great young stars, but also can bring in these top veterans who will, just by wrestling them, it will put a bigger light on them and it will up their stock. And even talking about their in-ring style, I think that British strong style is very much so an in-ring style in of itself. And I think that's why people like Shibata and Ishii have historically done some of their best work in the UK. Like and they love the space. And I think like Ishii especially is like a god in the UK, bro. Like,
I almost cried like when he came out of the cover box last year. I was like shaking.
The aura is unmatched.
Crazy. Just, my gosh.
What he brings to the table.
Yeah.
In the UK, I feel like he just kind of comes alive. Same thing like, you know, with Shibata. So it's really cool to see like these guys, like they really have embodied and made British strong style, like, you know, its own thing. This match was excellent. And I think like, you know, what I also really loved about this card is that, and I went back and I checked on Cage Match, but every single match on here got a lot of time.
Yes.
A lot of time. So Jacobs versus Mills got 18 minutes and 37 seconds. And the shortest match was the tag team match, and that was still 16 minutes. And so everybody got the women got 20 minutes, like, you know, Michael Oku versus Buzzard got 24 minutes, Slater versus Josh Alexander got 16, and then obviously, you know, you had the Rumble match. So everybody got really ample time to tell their stories. And
it didn't actually feel. Oh, sorry, keep interrupting you.
I was about to say the exact same thing, actually.
They didn't feel long.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it just felt very like well-paced, very well-paced match. Thing is with Connor and Luke, there's obviously like a story going to it. It's not a random match. There's stakes attached to it. So, you know, you're not just gonna skip it like, okay, this is just get the crowd warmed up for the other matches on the card. No. This is a match you don't want to miss. And that's why it was so smart to start off with it, because Luke Jacobs was a favorite for the Rumble. If he had lost this match, that changes everything for who people have predicted will win the Rumble. So it was a brilliant choice for it to start.
Absolutely. And also Luke Jacobs was also my favorite to win the Rumble. And so that would have put a true wrench in all my plans. I didn't even realize they were going to put that match first. And I knew I wasn't going to have time to sit down and watch it. So I had to get like I had to mute everything I could think of. I muted every single version of RevPro Revolution Pro. I muted the words York Hall. I muted everybody accounts. I had to mute you for a minute. Not gonna lie. For like 24 hours, I had to mute all my British friends.
To be fair, I could watch the second half because I had family coming around for Easter celebration. So I wasn't even there at York Hall, which absolutely pained me. So right after Grizzled Young Vets come out, I hear a knock on the door. I'm like, oh, it's time to log off. So I just muted everything. I kept Twitter on silent, kept my phone in the corner of the room. I did not want to see a single spoiler because this whole card was just too good. It was too good, and I was very excited. So
you know what's crazy, but it's also kind of a blessing. It's just so like I thought that if I just muted all like my British friends and mutuals, that I would be fine. But I was actually blown away that there was so much more coverage from like a lot of major sites on RevPro event that some things were still low-key getting spoiled for me. I said, damn, not y'all too. Oh, you know, but it's really cool. Like, you know, I think sometimes in wrestling, it is nice when you have like that little thing that feels like it's your thing. Yes, and I think especially like for people who became fans in the bit of that, the rebuilding phase of, you know, British wrestling, you know, it's very protective. Like, for example, like y'all, those of you who go, like who are, you know, physically there, like you're going to shows like maybe once a week at least. And you're seeing all the same people, and like it's a tight network, and it's just really something like I feel like people are it can easily become your little thing, and then now it's like really gaining more traction. Like I'm really excited. Like and I thought about specifically this match, Luke Jacobs and Connor Mills. I think by the end of this year, these two's lives are going to be very different. I do think that this year and especially like with all the stuff of like Tony being in being in, and at the last show.
Yeah, it was in High Stakes.
He's at High Stakes, he's been to RevPro shows before. Clearly there's a relationship. I do expect some type of involvement this year. I don't know. And there was subtle involvement last year, like with extras and stuff, like RevPro, wrestlers being extras and stuff for entrances and All In. But I don't know. I feel really good about it this year. I feel really good that some type of pre-show battle royal involvement, or I think we should expect some of these guys to participate, and I think that their lives are going to be changed.
I 100% agree. I feel like Michael Oku will definitely be
100%
the all-in card at some form, because he was on it as security during the Mira and Hobbs segment. I 100% expect him to either it's a battle royal or he's backstage with Ospreay, like something, because Tony Khan was there at High Stakes and we were all chanting, "You signed the wrong one," because that's how good the match was.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, not to crap on Ospreay, because obviously Ospreay is amazing, but people were chanting, "You signed the wrong one." And then obviously at the beginning of High Stakes, Orange Cassidy came out and had a match. So the fact that there's already seeds planted of this blossoming relationship between RevPro and AEW, it makes me very excited for these young stars, especially the two people we're talking about now, Connor Mills and Luke Jacobs.
Luke Jacobs needs to be in the G1 Climax this year, actually. But
I agree.
Nobody didn't hear that from me, but I think that Luke Jacobs needs to be in the G1. But you know what I just thought about that a lot of people aren't going to like, but just don't shock yourselves. Don't get too shocked when it happens, y'all. I'm kind of scared that Michael Oku might end up on the All In card facing Jericho. Jericho loves him. Jericho loves him. Sorry. Like, let's just be real. That's very. If you watch AEW, you know that Jericho loves the young guys.
Yeah.
Not saying that everybody loves him back, but he's always wants to work with the guys. He always wants to have those crossover matches, and so I could easily see him telling Tony, like, "Hey, like, let me do it. I just want to do it. I want to, wrestle this Michael Oku guy." Ever since Bola last year,
they did face each other before, haven't they? So
he's been on Talk is Jericho. Like, he was on the cruise this year. So I do want people to understand. Do not be very shocked. And I'm not gonna lie. Like, if that's a sacrifice that I have to make for Michael Oku and Amira to be in All In,
oh yes, Amira.
I might have to make it. I don't know. And Amira, she was a part of the MJF entrance last year.
Oh yeah, she was. Yeah.
A couple of the girls. Who else? Hannah. Somebody.
Mercedes Blaze. She's a British.
Mercedes Blaze, and it was Hannah. She has blonde hair. That blonde and gray hair. I forgot her last name.
Yeah, same.
But she was a part of it too. But obviously Luke Jacobs ends up winning this match, and then we go into the next match where a lot of this build was very TNA based, and so Josh Alexander made his way back to the UK and faced Leon Slater. This match was great, and I remember when I watched it, I tweeted and I said, there are going to be a full generation of kids who grow up falling in love with wrestling because they saw Leon Slater. And I say that because I've gotten the fortune of being able to have interviewed him, like heading into, the anniversary show last year.
Yeah.
And he talked about his influences, and he said that his favorite wrestlers growing up were Jeff Hardy, RVD, and Shelton Benjamin, which I think says it all.
It does, yeah.
It says it all. And there's a very specific quality about those particular wrestlers that even if they weren't the champions, or even if they weren't like technically the company build top stars, they're the type of wrestlers that inspired other people to be wrestlers. And just because of how different they were and how they were doing things that nobody else was doing with their athleticism, their high flying and stuff. And you see a lot of those qualities, I would say, in a young Leon Slater, not just his moves, how he dresses, how he carries himself. And This was awesome. And I think obviously it sets up some type of rematch, in TNA now that Leon Slater is signed. But I was very surprised he got the win here. Obviously, it was like a really quick roll up type victory, but I really enjoyed this match. Definitely. I don't get to watch Josh Alexander often, but this is definitely one of my more favorable performances of his that I've seen.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about the connection and the Jeff Hardy, Shelton Benjamin RVD connection. There's something about Leon Slater that resonates with everybody where even if he's not a champion, even if he's not main event in wherever he is on the card, you're sitting down for a Leon Slater match. And I can almost imagine, I have a 5-year-old, 6-year-old cousin. He hasn't even started watching wrestling yet, but I know if I wanted to get him into British wrestling, I'm putting on a Leon Slater match.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Like he can not just that he can see himself through Leon Slater, a young black guy, but it's just the way he wrestles, the flips, everything. It's just so entertaining. And with this match, I'm not too familiar with Josh Alexander. This was my first time actually watching him. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. Like, he was really putting Leon to work. And I actually thought that the count at the end was a mistake. I didn't think that it was meant to happen like that. Just the look on Leon's face, I thought, oh no, have they made a mistake? But he actually got the win. It was a great match. It was amazing. And the little shows, the little RevPro shows, they're kind of, I don't know if it's just me, but it looks like we're going to see a Leon Slater heel turn soon. He lost his cruiserweight championship to Jordan Breaks not too long ago, and he's just had this different vibe since losing, where he kind of has to be held back a little bit. I remember Michael Oku holding him back when he tried to give Jordan Breaks a bit more, I don't know what you want to call it, maybe another punch, another kick or something, but he held him back. I was like, okay, this is a different Leon Slater to the one we see. He's changed his theme music. I think he changed it a couple months ago. Like, he has a completely different vibe, so I do see a heel turn for him. So that would be interesting in terms of like character development kind of thing. But yeah, I agree. The match was great. It went on for like 15 minutes.
Yep,
Yeah.
16:45.
It was, oh, they even feel like it was that long. It was
That's what I'm
brilliant.
saying. Like, everybody got, but you know what? That's the point of time in matches, right? Like, more time doesn't mean just throwing things in just for the sake of throwing them in. More time means, like, just having the proper time to be able to tell a story, beginning, middle, and end, pieces, body, paragraph, conclusion, like, and it shouldn't feel like, a million years has passed by
Yeah.
if you're doing it right, like, I think that if you can feel the time pass when watching a match, a lot of times it's not as good as it thinks it is. Like, length isn't the only thing that I think determines greatness. There are a lot of long matches that suck.
Oh gosh, you're telling me.
Like, there are a lot of long matches that absolutely suck. And then there's some short matches where you're like, oh my God, that might have been the greatest thing I've ever seen. So it's all relative in the world of pro wrestling.
Yeah,
But this one definitely Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to lie and say that, yeah, I will be following the conclusion of this through TNA. I doubt it, but I support you. I support them. Yeah, if this ever makes like pay-per-view or something, I'm like, okay, cool. Am I going to, yeah. I really tried with the TNA product. I'm not 100% into it.
Yeah, 100% into TNA. I used to watch it back in the day when,
right?
back in the day, like AJ Styles and all that. Ooh, I was there for that.
I found myself, especially like when Sting, leading into the Sting retirement, I found myself watching a lot of vintage TNA. And I'm like, if I'm spending more time watching like stuff that happened decades ago than what's happening now, that says a lot. So
I think it was like a couple months ago. I was rewatching just a bunch of main event Mafia clips. I don't know why.
Yes, they put their complete history on YouTube.
Yes, they're like compilation of everything.
Yes, like 3-4 hours, and I made my way through about 3/4 of it.
Yeah, I was taking out my braids. I was like, let me put something on. And I put that on, and I was like, oh, I forgot these were good times. Even do you remember when AJ like came back and he was this mysterious character? He didn't want to talk for a while, and they wanted to get the aces and eights. Like, I was watching all of that. I said, "Damn, like these are good times." But yeah, TNA. I haven't sat down and watched the product for a while. I feel like I should get into it since they've signed some British talent like Leon and Danny Luna. So yeah, I think I should get back into.
I was subscribed when Trinity was there, and so she did.
Oh yeah,
I think a
Trinity's there.
tag match. She did a tag match and like a match with Danny Luna, and I got to watch it and enjoy it. Like like it's just my thing is I feel like I used to be a lot better about cherry picking things, but I've decided now that if I don't like at least 70% of what the product is, I'm not watching live. If there's a match or something that I have to see, somebody better clip it and like me to watch, like directly. Like if I just need to see it, like for example, but I think TNA is actually really good about that part of just they have a great social media team.
Yes,
And
they
they have
do.
great YouTube team. So like they know like if they have any matches that go viral, put them on YouTube. They put the Osprey matches on YouTube. So I'm also not really worried about that. Like if it's really good, y'all can find me.
I agree. No, they're good. But yeah.
Um, did you have anything else on this before we move on?
No, not really. It was a good match. It was great.
No,
I
really good.
wanted to see more of Josh Alexander in the UK if he does want to come back to the UK because that was my first time watching him and I'm very impressed. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we'll see a lot of more people. I think as the scene really starts to heat back up and it feels like more places are really bringing in talent, I think we will see a lot more people. People with flexible contracts like, the AEWs and the TNAs. I think we will see more appearances throughout Brit Rest. But moving on, we had the RevPro Undisputed British Tag Team titles were on the line. And we had Subculture, the defending champions, versus Grizzled Young Veterans. I will say this, I've seen quite a few Subculture matches at this point, and I haven't seen as many Grizzled Young Veterans matches as I would have liked, like a few things here and there. But this was like one of the first times like I've really sat down and watched a match from them, and I was really entertained. I really liked this match actually. And I get the hype now. Like I'd understood a little bit beforehand. I think that they had a great vibe. I felt like they had a great look. I loved their marketing strategy when they decided to get back on the indies. Like as a person with a background in PR, like I'm a sucker for somebody with great marketing abilities because I feel like that's one thing that indie wrestlers particularly leave on the table a lot about they're not promoting themselves properly. They're not adding any value to the organizations that they're wrestling linked for. Like, I really enjoyed that part of Grizzled Young Veterans. I feel like they really came in very intentional about what they wanted to accomplish. But the match was really good. And I think that they're great. And I want to see them in World Tag League this year. That's really my 2 cents on it. I've been sold. Absolutely. Put them in World Tag League.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I've seen Subculture look too in a while.
Yeah, I mean Subculture are really good. They've held on to these championships for a while. I think they won them in the summer, Epic Encounter. They beat the Greedy Souls. And I feel like they just work so well. Like the fluidity of these guys, like, oh my gosh, they move like water, they just know each other so well. I love tag team wrestling. When tag team wrestling is good, tag team wrestling is good. And I feel like that when I watch Subculture. In regards to Grizzled Young Veterans, I've only watched them a handful of times as well. I watched them in, I want to say January at Progress Wrestling against, was it Sunshine Machine? Yeah, it was Sunshine Machine, and it was absolutely amazing. Look, I actually implore you to go and watch that match. Find a way to subscribe to Progress Wrestling and go watch that match because it was genuinely amazing. Like, they sold me on the whole Grizzled Young Vets thing. I didn't know anything about them. I was very new to them, but I was sold after that match. So they are a tag team that I'm looking forward to learning more about. They faced another tag team called True and Lacey. These are 2 young guys who are making their way up in the indie scene. Faced them in the RevPro show before the Rumble. And it was absolutely amazing. So I wanted them to win the championships purely because I wanted them to be in more RevPro shows. If they're the RevPro Tag Team Champions, then they are going to be in more RevPro shows. And they won. And I'm so happy about that. I think maybe Subculture, because I don't know, but they signed to TNA as well. Was it just Danny?
I thought they were as well.
Well, there you go. They're probably going to do more stuff in TNA. So I wasn't surprised to see them drop the belts. Unfortunately, I think Mark got injured, so they couldn't wrestle or defend their championships at high stakes, the last big Rev Pro show. So it was very nice to see them return. But yeah, like this was a great match. Once again, it didn't feel like it went on for so long. Grizzled young vets, they work well together. I mean, I could talk about Grizzled Young Vets for maybe an hour or so. Like they're just so entertaining. I was very impressed with this match. I was very entertained with this match, and I was extremely happy with the result. So yeah.
Absolutely. And next was a match that I will say overly exceeded all of my expectations. It ended up, I think, being the pound for pound best match of the card was the women's match. I've never seen a women's dog collar match done correctly until now. Actually, TNA tried to run one a few months ago. What was that? I know that was in 2023. Masha Slamovich versus Killer Kelly before they ended up becoming a tag team. It wasn't great. It felt like they had limitations, and I think, especially for me, like as a person who have seen Masha, especially outside of that setting, I know she's like a deathmatch queen. Like, and it felt very tame. Like there was no blood, no anything. Like it was just very tame. And like if you've seen a Masha Slamovich, you know like that's not typically her. So I'm going to blame it on booking, whatever. But before that, that was the only women's dog collar match I've ever seen. So this one was 100% fitting, I would say, of the feud that they've had, because Danny and Luna and Alex Winter have been going at it for a while. They've traded the belt back and forth. Yeah. This felt like a blood feud, and I think that, and I've said this before, but I feel like maybe I haven't articulated it properly. I don't think that we make enough space, or we make enough. How do I say it? We don't make enough space, or we don't make it a big enough deal. How do I say this? We don't make enough space for women's wrestling to not be a novelty.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I feel women's wrestling a lot of times feels so watered down for male consumption almost.
Yeah.
Just like exactly. Like who wants to see ladies bleeding and stuff like that, or or hardcore? And I feel like it's been so watered down, and we see it especially in American wrestling now. That's why it's always some big debacle whenever AEW does the women's street fight.
I was say like when I forgot their names now. Who said that they were mutilating themselves? There was a critique about Anna Jay and like they were mutilating. Come on.
Yeah, self-mutilation.
It's just a bit of blood. It's not that deep.
And I think even somebody, I saw like some fans saying after the street fight, they said, well, Mercedes, you let them do that. Don't you get involved in that. Your face is too pretty. Like they have to do that to be important. And it's just like, guys, deathmatch wrestling is wrestling.
Right.
Hardcore wrestling is wrestling, and it's women's wrestling because women's wrestling is wrestling. And so I say that because this match really took it there as far as violence and brutality in ways that I have not really seen women given the time or space to do. Things like they got 20 minutes and they really beat the hell out of each other. The Crimson Mask was nuts. Both of them were bleeding. But like the moves that they were hitting, like the clever usage of the chain, the usage of weapons was so creative that, and here's the thing, I will say, there's been some great dog collar matches, I would say, in the past 4 years, especially in wrestling. A lot of that has been attributed to AEW. Like, you've had the so many great dog collar matches. And I can honestly say these women lived up to the brutality of, of all of them. Like they really did the damn thing. And I was pleasantly surprised. This was everything that I could have hoped for it to be. And honestly, I think in a bit it was something that I haven't really seen before as far as like the time that it was given. Like I said, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing this. Like, I don't think I've ever seen like, a legitimate, not a sanitized street fight, but a real woman to woman, blood and gut street fight dog collar match in a very long time. In a very, very, very long time. It felt real, it felt appropriate. And I feel like sometimes with women's wrestling, people just throw around stipulations of just like, oh, okay, like yeah, street fight. Oh yeah, this,
Yeah. And then if you one steel chair involved, there's like nothing else.
Exactly. And if you and I think typically we accept it because we rarely get opportunities to see women do different things. So we just accept things sometimes. But this felt like a match that felt perfectly built to be in a dog collar match.
Yes.
And over delivered. And kudos to both of them. Like, obviously, Alex Windsor's future, I think, is up in the air right now. All for good things. Like, she seems to have opportunities lined up. Definitely now for Windy City Riot, New Japan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, I think there's a really great chance we see her in AEW at some point, in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So, if her time in the British Indies is coming to an end soon, I think she's done really well for herself. And like I said, I think Danny Luna is a superstar waiting to happen.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I felt like it made sense to have the stipulation because I was worried for the women's title in terms of like the match that they would get on the Rumble. I thought it would be overshadowed by the Rumble, by Oku's match, by the tag match, by Mill's match. Having it be a dog collar match was just the perfect move because number one, Alex Windsor is bringing in that chain at high stakes. It makes sense that she's probably going to try to use it to cheat. Why not incorporate it into the actual match? You have the fact that they've been feuding for a while, as you said, that the belt's been going between the two of them. So it's not just, oh, Alex is a number one contender and Danny's just, defending the championship. These are two people who do not like each other, who want to hurt each other. You could actually see in the match that they wanted to hurt each other and not just win. That spot when Alex kind of wrapped Danny around the post with the chain and was just yanking it. Woo, Lord Jesus.
I think, and that's like, I think I get so frustrated sometimes is because women's wrestling seems so, and this is strictly from a state's perspective, or Western perspective. Women's wrestling has been so sanitized. Yeah. All of these feuds, quote unquote, they feel so overproduced sometimes. Like, the street fights in some places are the hardcore matches. There's nothing hardcore about it. It's just like, oh my gosh, look at me using this chair. Exactly. I used a kendo stick.
Yeah, I was gonna say kendo sticks have been overused for like how many years now?
I am so hardcore.
Yeah.
And I think, and don't get me wrong, kudos to anybody who puts their body through any type of craziness for our entertainment. But especially after me being such a big fan of Japanese wrestling and of just alternative and international forms of wrestling, when you see what people are doing elsewhere, you realize, oh my God, this is like so tame. And I don't, like I said, there needs to be more spaces for women to be sickos.
Yes. I think it's when I see blood in wrestling. When I see blood in wrestling, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I want. This is what I want to see. I want to see more blood. I want to see more craziness. I want to see mad, crazy spots. Like, it really like satisfied all of those cravings for me in this match.
Absolutely. A lot of us are literally death match merchants. I and the best way I can describe it is I think of, I was in the building for Full Gear 23 in Los Angeles when Swerve versus Hangman happened, and there are men turning away, gagging.
Really?
They can't, like, on YouTube, and then not on YouTube, but on Twitter, you like when men are like, "Oh my gosh, this is a mutilation! Like, why are the women shouldn't have to watch this, etc." Blah blah blah. Meanwhile, every woman in the building was ascending. Ascended.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. What is it with us?
Two cups in my hand. I felt like my body was doing backflips above my head. I couldn't believe my eyes.
I agree. Like, that was me. There was an indie match in December between Tate Mayfairs and Simon Miller. I don't know if those names are familiar with you.
I've heard of Tate Mayfairs before.
Tate Mayfair, yeah, okay, Tate Mayfairs. So they had a street fight. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what he was trying to do, but he got a cheese grater and was trying to scrape this guy's head off.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes, more blood. Like, it was freaking amazing. I love blood in matches. I'm sorry to say, I put my hands up. I'm a sicko.
I am a sicko, and I think, and it's crazy because, like, the wrestlers that I love most, if they're not like, if they aren't, they're sickos in other ways. Like, for example, like Shibata and Zack Sabre Jr. when he does his joint manipulation stuff. Like, I think Zack Sabre Jr. is like the most violent wrestler that doesn't bleed often. He's so violent, but in different ways. Like, he's scary in different ways. And my mind, body, and soul thrives off things like that. You know, Jon Moxley is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I think this says a lot about me. Yeah. So I want to see more of that in wrestling. And I think that, you know, the tide is starting to shift a little bit. You see people who are kind of making that kind of, we probably won't know more until, I would say, years from now. But I think Masha Slamovich is going to be one of those people that definitely bridges that gap between, like, indie deathmatch wrestling and bringing, like, the hardcore style more mainstream, because I think, like, wherever her next contract is definitely going to be someplace bigger. Yeah. You know, there's a few people who are doing it, and I love that British wrestling, women's wrestling, was really at the really, like, doing this on a bigger scale. And I just hope that match inspires everybody to just do more. Give the girls the ball in the blade. That's it.
Because the match got a standing ovation at York Hall. People are saying this night. When I was watching it, I was absolutely amazed. When they brought in the dog cage, when she was doing the shot.
Oh, the dog cage was sick.
Oh,
the dog cage was sick. Her back is cooked.
Yeah. When she wrapped the chain around her face and then was trying to scrape her face across the rope around the entire ring. They were trying to kill each other. I said, it's not just for the title. They're trying to finish each other off, and you could see it in and I just love the fact that the chain was incorporated in everything. You know how sometimes they try to do a wrestling match and then the chain just happens to be there, but in this match I can't even string a sentence together. That's how good it was. Like, it was genuinely amazing.
It's the best version of storytelling, and I will always stand by that. I mean, of course, promos are cool, and there's some great things that happen in promo segments, and I'm not anti-promo by any means, but I'm a huge believer in showing, not telling, and I think as a fan, there's no greater satisfaction than following something and, you know, looking for all those little tiny minor details and keeping up with all those little and feeling like it paid off. Like, you know, like, of just like, I remember, you know, her bringing this to this show and this to this show, and then they use this call back to it. So, like, it feels like congratulations, you're our most valued employee.
You are now promoted. Yeah, honestly, I agree with everything.
It's almost like Spotify. You are in such and such top 1% listeners. Yes, I am. I am your number one noticer. I be peeping everything. Exactly.
I love it.
That's
I
how I
love
be
these
feeling.
little tidbits. Because when she brought that chain, I said, this is interesting. Why is she bringing the chain? And like, then they use it in the match. I'm like, oh, you guys are geniuses. This is absolutely perfect. Because it could have been a normal one-on-one match and Alex would have cheated with the chain and the referee didn't see and ooh, whatever. But no, to have it as a dog collar match, the chain is right there in plain view. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. I can't even praise the match enough. Like, I've run out of words. The match was amazing. It was amazing.
Absolutely. And moving on to the last match on the card before the Rumble was Michael Oku versus Leighton Buzzard for the undisputed British Heavyweight Championship. So I will be honest, I wasn't as familiar with Leighton Buzzard before this. But I walked away from that match saying, "Oh, he's the real deal." And
he is amazing. I'm gonna be interrupting you so much with this segment because
actually, I was actually going to say, like, because you are more familiar with him heading into the match, like, by all means, share your thoughts first.
Okay, yeah, sorry to cut you off there, but when it comes to Leighton Buzzard, I will sing this guy's praises till Jesus comes again. Like, and unfortunately, he got injured in that match and he tore his ACL. Yeah. So if he ever does listen to this, shout out to him. You know, we're wishing you a speedy recovery. But Lyric, this guy is genuinely one of the best in the scene in this country. You know how you just said you weren't familiar with him, but you left thinking this guy is it. So when I first watched him, it was the same thing with me. I did not know who this guy was. He came out at a London show in RevPro in that 229 venue, and a lot of people were like, who are ya? Who are ya? You know, there's British chants. And, you know, people were making fun of him, and there was a woman in the audience making fun of his hair. And I thought, oh God, you know, he's trying to cut a promo. You can't even hear him because this person is shouting. But he stood his ground, you know, and he really impressed me. And then he had a match with Oku. It was the summer before Oku was the champion. So Oku wasn't even the champion at this point. I think he was just the number one contender. He had won the Rumble. He was making his way up to be the face of RevPro, essentially. And the match with Oku blew me away. He had another match with Oku, he beat him. Then they had the third match, and Oku beat him, cuts a promo at the end, praising him. We're all giving Leighton a standing ovation. The guy is truly amazing. He then goes off to Japan for a bit of an excursion, and he's part of this company called BJW. So I'm not too familiar with BJW. I don't know if you are. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, so he's there, and then he has a match with Yuya Aoki. I don't know if I've said the surname properly, but that match, people are telling me like, Natasha, go watch it. Yeah, did I butcher the name? I'm so sorry.
Is it Yuma Yagi?
I think so. I think that's his name. But he faced him for the BJW championship, and I got people like messaging me saying, Natasha, go watch that match. I watched it. He blew me away. He comes back. This guy faces Minoru Suzuki at RevPro, the London show at 229. He was fantastic. Suzuki shakes his hand, lifts his arm up, and then beats him up as Suzuki does. But he kind of got that, you know, pat on the back from Suzuki, which is like amazing. And, you know, yeah, he wanted a shot against Michael Oku because he was a different guy to who he was in the summer of last year. And, you know, the roll up to this match, the week before the Rumble, he was in the tag match. So it was him and, you know, the person that he came out with called Brent Semtex. So it was him and Brent versus Michael Oku and RKJ. He beat them. He beat Michael Oku. He made him pass out. So the momentum was on Leighton Buzzard's side, especially since he has beat Oku before. And as you said, like, he really shone in this match. I think in terms of the full package, Leighton Buzzard is the full package. His promos, I don't know if you've ever seen some of his promos online, but they are just captivating. He's very theatrical, especially when like Oku would kick out of pins, like the faces he would make. He's a very charismatic guy as well. Like he's the whole package, and I was so, you know, heartbroken to hear that he's now going to be out for basically the rest of the year, because it did seem like 2024 was going to be the year of Buzzard. But I'm not surprised to hear that you watched this and thought that he was a star, because I've already thought it many times.
Definitely. I was definitely sold on him, and and like you said, it's something when I went on Twitter and I'm like, oh my god, he's injured. Wait,
Yeah.
but I think that it's going. It was already going to be really interesting for me of like who are going to be the next few opponents lined up for Michael Oku. And he definitely stood out as a really good one, Leighton Buzzard. And so I'm interested to see, like, I hope everything goes well with his recovery. And I'm also really intrigued for, like, I feel like we are nearing the home stretch of the Michael Oku title reign, which is completely fine at
I
this
feel
point.
the same way as well. I do see it coming to an end soon. Yeah.
The end is in sight, which I think he's done more than enough. So I'm very interested to see what's next, and I think that feeds in perfectly to what comes after this match, which is the actual Rev Pro Rumble. And so, out of all the participants, we had. I'm going to just go backwards. I don't think this is in order, but whatever. Will Caven, Trent Seven, TK Cooper, Spike Trivet, Shakiro Irie, Shaw Samuels, Robbie X, Ricky Knight Jr., Oscar Lloyd, Mike DeViccio, Michael Oku, Mark True, Leon Slater, Josh Alexander, Jordan Breaks, Jordan Oliver, JJ Gale, Harry Milligan, Gabe Kidd, David Francisco, Danny Jones, Connor Mills, Chuck Mambo, Chris Ridgway, Cameron Kai, Brett Semtix, Brendan White, Anthony Agogo, Agile Blanc. Is that how you say it?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Blanc, I think so. Yeah.
And Jacobs. This was a pretty long one. It ended up going about 80 minutes. Listen, and obviously Zack Sabre Jr. had to pull out last minute, but I think that they still had a really great talent balance.
You just reminded me. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, because they announced like 2 days before that he wouldn't be able to be a part of it anymore. But I think that they did a really great balance of having some established talent and like some newcomers. It was really cool to see Chris Ridgway because last time I saw Chris Ridgway, I watched a Chris Ridgway match, he was still in NOAH and he had just won the junior tag belts, but vacated them and said that he needed to go home and be closer to his family. So I'm assuming that he's now wrestling back on the British scene fairly regularly. So it was cool to see him. Who else? Gabe Kidd being on here.
Yeah.
Always great to see him. Great to see Oscar. It does suck that Yuto Nakashima is injured. Huge young. I truly would have loved to see, young blood in the tag title picture in Rev Pro right now. I felt like that they were heading there.
Yeah, it definitely.
That collarbone injury is just so unfortunate. I hope that Nakashima truly does heal up soon. But obviously, Loeb is now a singles act during his time in Excursion. What did you think about the Rumble overall? They typically excite me, and I'm very happy about the winner. So I don't feel like I can complain too much.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy as well. But then, obviously, I'm a little bit biased because I feel like I'm the world's biggest JJ Girl fan. I'm actually wearing his t-shirt right now. JJ Gale! I wanted him to, he was my pick to win because I felt like JJ just had the best year. He's another person, because how at the beginning we said Connor Mills is a little bit underrated because you've got Michael Oku and RKJ up there in the lights. JJ Gale had an amazing match with Zack Sabre Jr. last year. Had a great match with Luke Jacobs at High Stakes. Like, he's somebody who has been building momentum for most of 2023. He faced what's the guy's name now? Kajita, I think.
At the Copper Box, yeah.
Yeah, so he faced him at the Copper Box. And I remember sitting there, not a lot of people were really like, people were into it, but they weren't like fully into it, like as much as, let's say, Luke Jacobs and Ishii. But it's funny to see that, like, now almost a year later, you have people who are rooting for JJ. They want him to be the champion. So he was the person I was rooting for, and he was the Iron Man. You know, he was there for, I think he came out number 5. So my notes say number 5. He eliminated Josh Alexander, and he was ultimately eliminated by Luke Jacobs. But yeah, JJ was the standout. Anthony Ogogo had the what I call the Brock Lesnar moment, where he's just eliminating everyone and just standing and waiting for someone to come back in. I knew it was going to happen because it's Anthony Ogogo, you know. What did you think about that? Like him eliminating everybody?
You know, like I agree with the Brock Lesnar stuff of like I feel like you always have to have that one person.
Yeah.
Rumbles, like you know, you have to have your crazy high flyers. You need your powerhouses to do some crazy feats of strength in there. You need some heels in there to like do something to try to trick the referee or something. Like you need everybody plays their role. You have your underdogs, and so I felt like it was appropriate. And going back to JJ Gale, I agree about the match in the Copper Box, you know, and I felt like, and I had interviewed Andy beforehand, and he was saying that that was one of the matches he was looking most excited for it, as was I, because it is somebody who had seen JJ Gale before and is a huge fan of Kosei Fujita. I think that that match will go down as a match that is very important for their young careers because I'm almost positive we will see it again in years, years in the future on a much larger stage. And so I think we don't really know the significance of that match now, but I agree. Like that match at the last show, high stakes, JJ Gale versus Luke Jacobs was freaking crazy.
It was.
Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. I haven't seen I've never seen a bad Luke. I've never even seen like a decent Luke singles match. I've never seen it. Everything is good. Anywhere between from good to awesome.
Yeah. That's why I feel like it made sense that he was the winner. I mean, it's Luke Jacobs. He's had a massive year. Like the matches with Ishii, because I feel like everyone talks about the Copper Box one. They had the rematch at what was called Uprising. So that one was brilliant. JJ, yeah, he's somebody who the match with Luke Jacobs as well. I feel like people who were not too familiar with the RevPro product, they've heard of Luke Jacobs because of the Copper Box match. Then they may have heard of JJ, but just thought, let me root for Luke because that's the name I know, and then left the match going, this JJ guy is really good. So I was just so happy with both of their performances. Another person who really impressed me was Robbie X. I think Robbie X, he's amazing. Yeah, he's like, in fact, the best cruiserweight in the world. I'm going to put it out there. If someone wants to shoot me, that's the best cruiserweight in the world.
You know what? And I think that's so, and I think that there needs to be some type of space, and I felt like the Cruiserweight Classic kind of did it, but WWE should have never gotten near it. But and then I think also All-Star Junior Fest and New Japan, it's a great concept, but I felt like it was a lot smaller than it probably should have been. Like there's right now, I think, some of the best cruiserweights that we've seen in years.
Yeah.
And I think that there should be a way, like some type of World Cup, like a genuine World Cup. Because when I look at the talent right now across, Japan, the UK, the US, there's so many really talented juniors right now, cruiserweights. And I don't know. And Robbie X continues to especially, at the UK, rise to the top of the list. And I think about him and people like Leo Rush and I don't know. I think that it needs to happen. And I think, especially with all these different relationships now, RevPro is working with, has with AEW and New Japan and CMLL. There has to be something. There has to be something that we could do because the cruisers are insane. Robbie X is just always so good.
Yes. Do you remember the match with Mustafa Ali? I think it was high stakes. Yeah, that match was absolutely amazing. I mean,
I will say, Robbie moved me. Mustafa has not yet.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna be honest. How do I say it? My wrestling tastes are very, very high, and I think right now, and I have the same problem with Nick Nemeth. they're wrestling WWE style matches in non-WWE promotions, and like they still have the same real style. Like I haven't seen, like, you know, I feel like some people, like when they leave Stanford, they're like, oh, okay, the handcuffs is off, like I can really hoop now. I don't see anything really different from their WWE work versus now, and I want to. That's why I said I'm going to leave the jury wide open until Chicago, because Nick Nemeth is facing Tomohiro Ishii, and if you can't have the match, yeah, if you can't hoop with Ishii, we gotta talk. And it's not, and I'm not saying that these people are bad wrestlers, not at all. It's just more so of like, if you're going to be in New Japan, if you're going to be in these places, I want to see you wrestle that style. I'm not trying to see this Monday Night Raw, 5-minute match with 3 commercial breaks type style and finding the hard cam. Like, no, I'm not here for that. Same thing with, like, you know, Mustafa, he has a match versus Hiromu Takahashi, which is, these are 2 wrestlers, Hiromu and Ishii. That's what I said. Like, I'm not condemning them at all. I hope to be really, really, really pleasantly surprised, actually, at Chicago, because these are world-class talents, everybody across the board, but I haven't been moved, really, on this post-WWE work.
Okay. Well, speaking of like being moved, because there's a lot of wrestlers in this RevPro, I look at them, I'm like, why are you not in more places? Like, how come I'm not seeing you being booked by more promotions, you know? Jordan Bray, he came out as number 1. He is currently the Cruiserweight champion. He actually had a match with Zack Sabre Jr. in a really random independent promotion, like way outside of London. I didn't go to it because it was so far, but I know Charlie went. Charlie from Wrestle Purist.
Is that the one that had that super crazy technical wrestling match that people said was better than the first Danielson Sabre Jr. match?
I think so.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to watch it yet, but I heard a lot of amazing feedback about that match.
Yeah, so Jordan Breaks is someone to watch. I would say from the actual Rumble itself, like RKJ came out. I think he's the one who ended up eliminating Anthony Ogogo. So with Anthony eliminating so many people, then RKJ being the one to eliminate Anthony, that's kind of giving me, I don't know, like a sign that there's some big things to come for RKJ. And he came second. He's the one that Luke Jacobs ended up eliminating to win. So I do see RKJ not necessarily leaving the heavyweight picture completely, like just be in the corner in the shadows, because he's been in the shadows for a while in terms of the RevPro Championship. He was the champion before Great O'Khan. So, and I feel like a rematch is due. It has been due for quite a while. So he's kind of been lingering around. Michael Oku was eliminated by Anthony in a way that I found it so embarrassing for him. I was like, Jesus, this is how you got to treat the champion. Just tossing him over the top rope like a bag of rubbish. And RKJ came out, stepped on him on his way in, just to show you that there's a little bit of beef between them. He
was eliminated by Anthony Ogogo, right?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting because, you know, that's also, I'm thinking about now, all in implications. Anthony Ogogo was still technically signed to AEW. That could be a 0-hour match.
Oh, definitely.
Just things to put in, like, you know, just things like to have in the back of your mind, because I realized, like, these guys love their callbacks. So just to put that in the back of your mind, like I said, AEW doing cuts right now. He might not be there tomorrow. I don't know. But I don't know. I can't speak for nobody. But as of right now, I believe he's still signed to AEW. And if I'm not mistaken, he was doing like media for like All In and like the UK and stuff. So.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Would it be, maybe that's how they slot Oku in on the card? Who knows? Like,
probably, yeah. That's true. Was there anyone, because I want to get from your perspective, because obviously, like, all these names, I know them since I've continuously watched like RevPro's product. But was there any name from the people who were in this Rumble who you weren't too familiar with that you left being like, okay, wow, I'm obsessed?
I would say Jordan Breaks.
Yeah.
Jordan Breaks for me. But there's some people that, I mean, I have seen before. I I don't get to watch them as much as I would like to, that I think are really
Yeah.
talented. And I think TK Cooper is one of those people.
Oh, he is brilliant.
Every time I've gotten to see TK Cooper, I have been very pleasantly pleasantly impressed. And I really, but I watch him a bit more than others, but I really like Ricky Knight Jr. And I'm very interested to see like what's the next chapter in his career, because like I do think that, I'm not saying that he's at that place right now, but I do think that he's going to be at that place soon, especially since he's already won the belt before. Of like, okay, like what's next? Is it being signed? Is it like, am I just going to commit like freelancing? Am I going to like, go try to go to a major? Who knows?
Yeah, because he's related to Zach and Soraya, and they're in AW
Exactly.
and RA. So, people, it's on the horizon. People are saying it's on the horizon. I can see it for him.
If it was up to me, he would be the one with a contract right now. But hey, I hate that.
That's what the streets are saying.
I hate that when that day and Soraya was like, "Yeah, my brother is all elite." I said, "They got the wrong one."
Yeah, a lot of people are rooting more for RKJ than Zach.
I mean,
Zach
RKJ just has it. He's insane.
Yeah, but to be fair, Zach Zodiac is quite he's good. I
Yes, he is.
necessarily
Absolutely.
not think he's great. Like, there's nothing against him, but I think RKJ is just slightly a little bit more in terms of like star power. The look, everything. I just feel like he's a complete package compared to Zach, and Zach may be still finding his feet in terms of his presentation, but. Yeah, no, I do agree with most people when they say that Ricky should also be signed. I don't know what people are dragging their feet for. I mean, the guy had a great match with Zack Sabre Jr. at the Code Box as well. I think people forget about that because of the other great Code Box matches. But Ricky can pull out a good 4.75 stars. He can do that.
Absolutely. It really is crazy to me when I think about the fact that he has a 5-star match, man. Not saying that like he shouldn't have it. It's just that Dave Meltzer, you just be handing it out that Ospreay crazy. That Ospreay text is crazy.
Yeah.
I know everybody loved wrestling him. They said we about to get 5 off rep.
I mean, I love Ospreay. Thing is, with me, I'm so biased with these British wrestlers. I would give them 5 stars for just standing in the middle of the ring. Like, that's me. I love Will Ospreay. I love all of these. Even JJ, I'm giving JJ 6 stars in my head. But I don't say it out loud because I don't want people to come for me. But JJ gets 6 stars for me. Luke Jacobs is someone who I think should already have 5 stars under his belt. Because the match with Ishii didn't get 5 stars. It got like 4 points something.
Insane.
Yeah. So even this Rumble alone, like, I'm looking at all these talented names. I've written here that one of my favorite moments was when Leighton Buzzard hopped out or hobbled out on his bad leg. And while watching it, I didn't know that it was like a real injury. I thought it was all kayfabe and it was all acting. And him hobbling out there cracked me up. Now I feel so guilty laughing, now knowing what I know.
Listen, I feel like the best wrestlers are the ones who really make you question everything. And it makes me think about like, heading into Revolution when Hangman was walking around after and we thought he was like dead injured. Like we thought he was so injured.
Oh yeah. And everyone was going crazy online.
I get so emotional over things, but man, when I thought Hangman was injured, I lost it. I felt like I was stressed. I was so stressed, so bad about that man. Oh my god,
that was me. Like because I went on Twitter and then Leighton said, "Oh, dislocated my knee." I said, "Lord, be with this boy right now because I can't be with him. I don't want this guy to be injured." And then I was at work and then I just saw my phone just light up. I said, "Okay, let me see what's going on." And then he's basically, the poor guy's crying, in his Instagram video, and I'm like, my heart just shattered, completely shattered for the guy. And I kind of knew something was up when Connor Mills was the one who replaced him. I thought, oh, okay, you're actually going with this replacement angle, because obviously Leighton Buzzard, who just lost the opportunity to be the champion, would want another opportunity to be the champion. So I put two and two together. I said, okay, maybe he's really injured. And I found that moment very funny when the guy that was going to replace Leighton, I think he's called Dynamite Lee Dawson. So he had the contender shirt, he took his shirt off, and then Mills kicked him in the face. So that guy, he's faced Conor Mills before at a RevPro show like ages ago. And he's someone who's still learning, someone who's still developing, someone who hasn't really made a name for themselves. So that was their moment to make a name for themselves. And here comes Conor Mills, who's on this heel run of a lifetime, kicking him in the face, stealing his spot after losing the opportunity to steal Luke Jacobs' spot. And then he enters the Rumble and then he gets eliminated, but the referees don't see. And then he comes back in and eliminates Leon Slater. I mean, the guy, like that whole little situation for me was one of my favorite moments because it was just great character work, you know? So that's what I love about the Rumbles, like the little stories, the little beefs in the corner. Yeah.
Well, and I was saying this a couple of days ago. All Japan actually just did so they do a tournament, a round robin tournament every year called Champion Carnival. And so before the kickoff this year, they did like a Rumble with a lot of the participants. And I think that, listen, if they're done well, they create so many little stories that can sustain a promotion for the next calendar year. If done, exactly. All Japan does them. Noah recently this year, they did like a pre-tournament Rumble, which ended up being super great. Obviously, the Royal Rumble typically is supposed to set up the stories for, like the ongoing year. So
yeah,
I love the storytelling of a good Rumble. And I think that RevPro is really good at it. Andy Quilden, if nobody else got me, you got me. Andy is always going to be in my top 5 promoters of the year, bookers of the year, as long as I got breath in my body. So that's that. That's just a word.
Yeah, I could see because there was this moment between Shaw Samuels and Spike Trevay when he kind of chased them around because they've had some beef going on. You had the tag teams having some issues, like the Greedy Souls, the one that got eliminated like straight away, and then his team member comes out with security because he's just seen what's happened to his team member. So now I see Greedy Souls versus Grizzled Young Vets happening. JJ, obviously he came third. He's very hungry for it. So I see a JJ, maybe RKJ feud. I see a JJ everyone feud since he was beating up on everyone. Robbie X, I think he eliminated Jordan Breaks. Jordan Breaks is the cruiserweight champion, so I see Robbie X versus Jordan Breaks for a cruiserweight championship. I see Conor Mills just feuding with Leon Slater since he eliminated Leon. I just see so many feuds coming out from this one match, and that's why I really, really enjoyed it. And I was very happy with the winner as well, Luke Jacobs, who was my second one to win if JJ didn't win. And the moment when his tag team partner, Ethan Allen Page, came out, I'm not too familiar with him. I don't know if you are.
No.
Yeah, so I wasn't I didn't pop because I didn't really know much. But I do know that they're in a tag team. So, yeah, I think we got some good tag team Luke Jacobs stuff coming up next with RKJ and Gabriel Kidd as well, who does what he always does best, talking mess and then
just yelling.
Talking mess and yelling. So yeah, I can see some good stories coming out of this, and I'm excited for Luke Jacobs versus Michael Oku at the Cover Box.
Yes, so that's my that's my final question. Do you think that Jacobs wins there, or do you think that he chases longer?
Oh no, I see him winning at the Cover Box.
I do too.
I agree. I don't want it to be pushed further. I want it to happen at the Cover Box then and there. I just feel like story, yeah. Like the Cover Box is very you start to see things where certain pay-per-views or certain locations are very pivotal to a wrestler's story. So with the Rumble, I believe the Rumble is very important to JJ Gale because the first Rumble, he eliminated Zack Sabre Jr. and that's what started their feud. And that's what started his, build to the match with Zack and the match with Vegeta and the match with even Luke Jacobs, because Luke Jacobs came out and was like, oh, you couldn't beat Zack Sabre Jr., now try and fight me. So the build-up of momentum for JJ started at the Rumble. And then the next Rumble, he's now the Iron Man. With Luke Jacobs, his standout moment in his career so far was at the Copper Box. Why not have another moment at the Copper Box? I feel like the Copper Box is going to be like his place. So I see him winning at the Copper Box. I don't see them dragging this feud between them any longer.
I agree.
The Copper Box match is in August. It's March. No, it's April now. So if they don't do it at the Copper Box, I don't see where they can do it.
I completely agree. Just want to get your perspective on it. Thank you so much for joining me. You'll probably be back on as we head into the Copper Box show. And preview what is definitely going to be an amazing card. Super excited that you were able to join me and talk about British wrestling. Where can we find you? And Wrestling Rhapsody.
So thank you for having me. Sorry for interrupting you so many times.
No, of course. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to typically experience this thing that you're obsessed with by yourself. And so once you can finally talk to other people about it, you just get so excited. That happens to me literally all the time with different forms of wrestling. So no, this is a safe space. This is for nerds and sickos. This space is for nerds and sickos. So if you don't talk about your passions this passionately, do not come.
True, yeah. I have a tendency to just ramble and be like, I was going to mention this, but then I started talking about this and I go off on a tangent, and it's just because I just love this place so much. Yeah, I love wrestling.
For the love of the game.
Sorry, what? I didn't hear you.
I said for the love of the game.
Yeah, exactly. With Wrestling Rhapsody, you can actually catch me on Instagram, X, Twitter, and Spotify. I'm trying to find out how to put my podcast on other platforms. So when I get to there, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, Wrestling Rhapsody is all about British wrestling. Listen to me just ramble on without taking any breaths about what's going on in the independent scene. I review some shows. I take you guys on a journey about how I think storylines will happen and, my favorite wrestlers and their character development. I talk about it all. So if you're into indie wrestling or you want to get into it before you get to the Copper Box, then check out Wrestling Rhapsody on all social media platforms.
Yes, please check it out. I'm a huge fan, and so many other people are as well. You can find me at Lyric Wrestling on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube at Lyric Swinton. Some fun stuff came out recently. Obviously, interview with Willow Nightingale last week, as well as the survey that I've been working on. It feels like forever. Finally got published on the last day of Women's History Month. So if you haven't read it, please go read it. There's some really great women who are featured, and Tasha is one of them, just speaking on their experiences, highs and lows of content creation. And so I'm super proud of it. It's a long read, but I think it's kind of worth it. And I have another interview coming out this week. I'm super excited for people to finally get a chance to read it. So yeah, just stay tuned. I know that a lot of people are heading to Philadelphia this week. So if you're heading to Mania Week for anything, whether it's a Stardom show, DDT, TJPW, WrestleCon, WrestleMania itself, please be safe and have the best possible time. And as for this show, this Saturday is my anniversary. So I'm actually really super happy. I don't know if by the time you listen to this, hopefully I will have figured out exactly how I plan to celebrate. But my anniversary is on Saturday, April 6th. So that's 1 year of Maps and Grabs. So super exciting stuff. So you'll get 2 episodes this week, one way or another. Whenever I stop crying long enough to record my anniversary episode. So that'll be fun. But to everybody who watches this show and has been on this journey for the past year, I really appreciate it. And thank you, Natasha, for joining me. And I will talk to of course. And I will talk to the rest of you soon. Bye.